In Syria, the death toll from an airstrike on the rebel-held town of Murat el-Numanoun has reportedly surpassed 50. The Syrian Observatory of Human Rights said that Russian jets carried out the strike as Moscow marks 100 days of intervention in the country. I-24 News correspondent Uri Shapira has more.
The crisis in Syria continues to intensify with hopes of new talks underway. UN Special Envoy to Syria Staffan de Mistura said Sunday he insists on holding the Syrian talks in Geneva on January 25th. De Mistura met Syrian Foreign Minister Walid Mualem Saturday. Mualem said his country is ready to take part in the upcoming meeting, but also asked for a list of groups that will be classified as terrorist organizations.
And after this, I will continue my trip also to Tehran, so it's premature to make any comments.
At least 57 people died Saturday as an airstrike hit a courthouse and a prison in the rebel-held town of Murat el-Numan. Most of the casualties were prisoners held by the extremist jihadist group the Al-Nusra Front. It was not clear whether the airstrikes were carried out by Syrian or Russian forces. Meanwhile, evidence of an increasing famine in the southern Syrian city of Madaya continues to mount. Since July 2015, the town was reportedly besieged by President Bashar al-Assad's forces and the Shiite group Hezbollah. The UN is about to enter the besieged town in the coming days after reaching an agreement with the Syrian government. The aid distribution was supposed to start Sunday and was postponed for logistical reasons.
Madaya is one of many besieged areas inside Syria. Around about 400,000 people are in besieged areas. Overall, if you look at the population that's hard to reach in Syria, that extends upwards to almost 4.5 million people across the country.
At the beginning of 2016, the future doesn't look too bright in Syria, a country torn between different political and ethnic factions. It has also become the focus of a geopolitical struggle alongside Yemen and Afghanistan as Russia enters the 100th day of its aerial campaign and months after the US coalition began its own campaign. With so many factions in this puzzle, the road to full reconciliation seems still long and difficult.
And with me right now is Ali Waqid, Senior Middle East Analyst for I-24 News. Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us. Ali, let's start understanding. Maybe Russia will realize now that it's in over its heads. Maybe they got into the mud a little bit too deep than they intended.
I'm not sure, Lucy, how many times the international community said that it will intervene in Syria because of humanitarian issue, the chemical attacks, and we did not see. It is true that in the case of the chemical attack, there was a very significant process that ended with the evacuation of the chemical weapons from Syria. But I think the international community, above all, is very indifferent for what is happening in Syria. The focus is on the Islamic State and on the equilibrium of power between Bashar Assad and the rebels and the interest of the superpower and of the regional power, Iran and Saudi Arabia. This is the most important thing for the international community. This is why, with all the pain we are seeing, and I saw you're facing these pictures, very tough, but these are not the first tough pictures that we saw from Syria. Now, Madaya is the trend that everybody is talking about. I hope that they will try to introduce food and medicines to the city, but this will not solve. There are many Madayas in Syria. The Yarmouk refugee camp is still a tragedy, and many other places. There is a need for a whole solution. Local tactical solution will not change the situation that in Syria still everybody is killing everybody, and those who pay the price are the innocents.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the hypocrisy of the world. We can say a lot about the hypocrisy of the world. We can say a lot about the hypocrisy of the West. But let's talk a little bit about the hypocrisy of the Arab world. Where is the Arab world watching these images, seeing these kids and people starving to death, not even being killed from bombardments, not even being killed from chemical weapons, just being killed from hunger? Where is the Arab world except being in wars among themselves, like Saudi Arabia and Iran?
The Arab world position itself very clear, Lucy. I'm not sure that the Arab world that is condemning the attitude of the regime in sieging the city of Madaya and elsewhere want to see this problem solved, because as long as the siege will be maintained, as long there will be pictures as these infiltrated from the city, they will use it, one, to attack the regime and to say that the people of Madaya are being sieged because of them being Sunnis, and they are besieged by Shiite militias and by the regime in order to prove, to emphasize the sectarian nature of the regime. This is why they are condemning, but I'm not sure that they are taking the measures in order to try to find a solution, at least not a lasting solution for the city and the other city. Lucy, Madaya is not alone. Madaya is not a unique case in Syria, and in the coming and more we are going deep into winter, we are going to see many Madayas in Syria.
Let's join to this conversation. Aboud Dandashi, a freelance journalist in Istanbul. Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us.
Hello, good evening.
So, Mr. Dandashi, you know, we're talking, just maybe you heard us talking about the hypocrisy of the Arab world and talking about the many Madayas that probably we will see after the coming winter. You know, I'm trying to ask myself, when you don't have a plan, and we talked a lot about the lack of plan that the world has, that the Western world has, that the United States has, and that Russia has. And yet, we are seeing these images coming from Syria after airstrikes from Russia. There is no concrete war plan or understanding that this war is a sectarian war, and this war won't be solved if maybe religious people won't get into the middle and try to solve it.
Well, I don't want to predict what course the Syrian war is going to take. You have too many regional players who are involved right now, each trying to push it in a separate direction. But the response of the Arab world towards events in Syria has been absolutely appalling. Right now, the Gulf states are more concerned with Yemen right now. They see that as more of a direct threat to them than what's going on in Syria. Madaya is only a few kilometers away from the Lebanese border. The Lebanese government is pretty much beholden to Hezbollah at this point. They cannot do anything in direct challenge to Hezbollah's interests. It's quite appalling right now. It's amazing that as tragic as the history of the region has been, Syria has somehow made it even worse. And it is an epic mess. And there has not been a plan or response equal to what we've been seeing.
You know, I'm trying to think with you, what can be the solution for this now? You know, seeing these images of people starving to death, this is something that I don't understand how people can accept this, how people can actually go to sleep, but maybe this is the nature of the human being. But what is something that can be done if you were, let's say, in the negotiation table? What can be done to start and solve this?
Well, this is a regime that has thumbed its nose at normal human decency time and time again, not gotten away with it. Since 2013, the regime of Bashar al-Assad has known that any so-called red lines or statements of concern, or statements of condemnations can just be ignored. They have the full backing of Vladimir Putin and the Ayatollahs in Iran to do pretty much what they want. If they want to starve people, if they want to gas them with chemical weapons, the rest of the world are not going to hold them accountable, which is why they feel emboldened to use these kind of barbaric tactics that they are.
Yes, Aboud Dandashi, thank you very much for this. Thank you. And let's stay in the same dispute. The ongoing feud between Riyadh and Tehran has split the region along sectarian lines, like we are seeing. This holds true in the almost uniformly Sunni Palestinian Authority, which has publicly sided with Saudi Arabia. But there is another reason at play. Ramallah remains deeply at odds with Hamas in Gaza, which receives financial and military support from Iran. And joining us right now to discuss this is I-24 News correspondent Mohammed Al-Qasim, who is in the West Bank in Ramallah. Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us. Mohammed, you know, we never maybe spoke about this fact, about the fact that the Palestinians, the majority of the Palestinians, are Sunni, and the Arab world and the wars in the Arab world and the Muslim wars are sectarian, are between Shiite and Sunni. And we are seeing that Hamas, that all the terror organizations are receiving money from the biggest enemies to the Sunnis in the Arab world. How it's working exactly?
Well, Lucy, as you can see, there is really no friends in politics. Hamas is friends with Iran because Iran supplies it with arms, supports it with money, and supports its control of the Gaza Strip. And this is one of the major reasons why the Palestinian Authority and officials within the authority came out immediately after Saudi Arabia announced it's cutting the diplomatic relationships with Iran in support of absolute support with Saudi Arabia. Also, others say that the Palestinian Authority felt compelled to support Saudi Arabia because it's one of the major financial contributor to the Palestinian Authority, and that the Palestinian Authority is coming on some major decisions to make about its security relationship with Israel, which may cut off its financial money from Israel, and it's going to rely on Saudi Arabia. I have here with me Mr. Ashraf Al-Ajrami, a former minister at the Palestinian Authority. Good evening, Mr. Ashraf. Why do you think that the Palestinian Authority chose to back Saudi Arabia in this decision?
I think it is a very bad decision of the PLO or Palestinian leadership, because we must prevent to be one of the political axes in this area, especially because we must keep a good relationship with all parties. Now there is a conflict between Saudi Arabia and Iran, and within also the religious groups here and there, and the Palestinian Authority and the Palestinian issue must be careful to be involved in any of these axes.
Thank you. As you can see, Lucy, there is major differences within the Palestinian street, saying that some supports the Palestinian Authority decision, but others definitely are opposed to it. Back to you in studio.
Yes, Hamad Al-Qasim, thank you very much for this. Ali, let's talk a little bit about that. You know, with all the sit-ups that you've been here and with all the discussions that we were here, we never mentioned this, that the Sunnis in the Gaza Strip are receiving money from the same people who are assisting in the killing of maybe Palestinians in Syria and in the refugees camps.
Let's try to arrange things, Lucy. In the last almost 2 years, Hamas did not receive Iran money because Iran sanctioned Hamas. Because Iran sanctioned Hamas for its support to the rebels in Syria. The hardcore of Hamas leadership and Hamas members were supporting the rebels because it was obvious from the very beginning that there is a sectarian background to the conflict in Syria. This is why most of Hamas members supported the rebels. And by the way, Iran and the Syrian regime accused Hamas that they brought their experience in digging tunnels, some tunnels that killed Iranian and Syrian soldier. But Iran play politics, and they know that they need Hamas. And when Hamas were underneath, and when Hamas lost most of its financial support, especially after the campaign of the Egyptian soldiers on the borders, Iran turned back to Hamas, accepting Hamas, begging to renew Iranian support, and started financing not Hamas government, but Hamas military wing and the Hamas movement. And this is why we are seeing Hamas presenting the condolences for all the leaders of Hezbollah, the Revolutionary Guard, and the regime who were killed. But the Iranians decided that they will create an organization that will be absolutely loyal to them, and they created the Sabirin organization, a semi-Shiite organization that will act in the Gaza Strip, who are accused now of not only being the military branch of Iran, but an organization that want to spread the Shiite ideology, the Shiite theology within the majority of the population in the Gaza Strip, who 100% of this population is Sunnite, as you mentioned, Lucy. hypocrisy as all the Palestinians, as also most of the people, even all the Muslims in Israel.
Hypocrisy at its best. We spoke about the Western world. Let's not start talking about our world. Ali Waka, thank you very much for this.